Good afternoon. Welcome to the Westport Board of Health December 12th, 2022 meeting, which I am calling to order, and I'm start with the season's greetings and best holiday wishes to everybody, because we will not be meeting again before the Christmas holiday. So hope everyone is well and staying healthy. A couple of other announcements. Under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, this meeting is being recorded. And secondly, we'll go to the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And we'll move right into the Director of Public Health report, the written report. Any questions for Matt?
I have none, Madam Chair.
If not, we'll move right into your verbal report, please.
Sure. COVID update, December, we have 27 confirmed cases, no new deaths or no hospitalizations being reported for the month. Pump reports, we're starting, some people were behind on submitting them, so, but went through them all and everything looked okay. Animal control, so there was 180 barn books. Nick got them completed, all but 3. There was 3 that they just weren't able to, he wasn't able to get on the property to do. But he's working through that with MDOT to try to get those resolved. And then I know he's got 1 scheduled and just 2 more waiting to be scheduled, and that should be it. I fully expect those to be done in the next week to week and a half at most. And then we'll submit them to MDOT, all of them.
Okay.
Transfer station, so the position was posted in-house for the transfer station worker and outside simultaneously. I've gotten 2 resumes in. Actually, 1 just came in a little while ago. It looks promising, so I'm gonna just finish going through it. I just opened it up before we came down. I came downstairs, so I'll look further into that.
So is now there only the 2 people there now?
Yes.
Okay.
And we'll do our best we can with 2 people, and if need be, I maybe ask one of our people upstairs to cover. John covers for us sometimes, Joe, or I could, ask somebody from another department like the cemetery to cover if need be. But once I start going outside to have other people cover, it starts to add up on the budget, especially on a Saturday or Sunday, because of the schedule. It's like an automatic time and a half and double time for some of the other people who don't work at the transfer station.
Right, sure.
It's gonna be, I'm gonna be mindful of that.
Yeah.
And if we're not able to get coverage and we're down to 1 staff person, we will have to close the transfer station for that day.
Yeah. I mean, we can't have 1 person there for safety reasons, so.
Right. Okay.
But we're working on it, and I have a few ideas that I wanted to give this some time. We just put it out there about a week. So the select board meeting was last week, a week ago, and everything got posted on that Tuesday. So it's only been out there a little less than a week. Give it a little bit of time. If we don't get anybody, then we'll move into what I'll call a plan B. So,
Okay.
and I'm putting that together now.
Alrighty. Thank you.
All right.
Anything else? Okay. Anything else for Matt? If not, we'll move into other business. The first item is the FY24 proposed budget discussion. And we have the budget we proposed to the town administrator. That's the column in red. Basically, we're supposed to level fund. And then his recommendations are the final column on the right, and you'll see some reductions that he's proposing. And I'm going to ask Matt to go through and explain where we're at and how we should proceed.
Okay, sure. So we'll start with the Board of Health budget. There wasn't too much going on here as far as what we requested and what we were reduced. So on the expense side, we went in level funded, and the town administrator left it level funded. We didn't see any cuts there. On the personnel side, under the professional line item, 5114, that's Linda's line item. So in FY '23, we were still, in the beginning of FY '23, still somewhat experiencing a lot of COVID headaches, we'll say. And we left a little bit of money in that budget to cover any overtime or mileage or clinics and stuff that we were doing surrounding COVID. But things on that front are definitely winding down from where they were. So talking with the town administrator, we cut back on that line item by just about 10,000. And that's more than I think, you know, it's not gonna cause us too much heartache.
And we reviewed this budget when it was submitted, so any questions about the town administrator proposed reduction there? Any thoughts on that?
No?
Okay,
Okay.
all right, Health. Next.
Transfer station.
Mhm.
There was no changes to the personnel side, and the only change that was made to the expense side was we were reduced by maybe 9,000 on the professional, which is freights. So when we entered into this budget in FY '23, we didn't really know exactly, you know, this was new for us to have contractors making runs for us and all that, so we weren't really sure where we would be, so we budgeted 44. It looks like we'll be more in the $35,000 to $36,000 range for those contracted services. So the cut that was made again is, we can live with it. We should be okay.
All righty. Thank you.
All right, animal control. So we had an open position in animal control. And I was told that anybody that had open positions was pretty much, for this FY '24, were gonna be eliminated, because of the budget constraints with the town. So that's what happened. The, open position we had was eliminated for now, with the exception that, we were left with $4,000 in the, looks like the, part-time ACO line, which will help us cover if we need to find somebody to cover a night or a day when Nick is off, that will help. And I don't know what else to say. Nick, I've talked to Nick about it. He'll be the 40-hour guy. Nick is on every other weekend or off every other weekend, and it's not reasonable to work him 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, every weekend. So there may or may not be a lapse in coverage here or there, but we'll do the best we can. That's all I can say with that.
I think that it is important to make the town aware that when you only have a one-person department, you can't get service 24/7. It just doesn't work. So we haven't been able to fill that position, so we will not have the opportunity to fill it once that budget is cut at town meeting. So people have to get used to a lower level of service. And that's what happens with a tight budget.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Okay, so
Nope, I'm all set.
moving down to expenses. So I had asked for an increase in gasoline and oil just because at the time we were doing this, everything was still on the rise.
Yeah.
Everything seems to be coming down. Who knows where it's gonna end up at the moment, or down the road. So we were budgeted this year for 2,000. I asked for 2,500, and we were reduced to 1,500. So I think maybe that's a gamble going that low, but we'll find out. I think right now we're expending anywhere between $600 and $700 for the year. So So we'll just have to see where that ends up on that particular line item. Then if you move down to animal care, we were budgeted in FY this year for 4,000. I requested 5,500 because our shelter costs have gone up. I've got all the revised pricing from the shelter. And I was a little concerned by, just based on the amount of animals that we bring to the shelter, we will be over the $4,000 with the increased prices. But again, that's what we asked for. We got 4,000, so we will level funded. We'll just have to play that one by ear
Okay.
and see what we have to do. But all in all, sure, we'll live with it and do the best we can.
Okay, great. Any questions or comments from board members about those proposed reductions?
I just don't know how the animal control, how we'll be able to manage with a loss of a position.
Well, he's been operating solo for a while, and he does a pretty good job of covering. It's just that he does have every other weekend off. He doesn't have every holiday off. He does work some holidays out. I don't have him come into the office. I keep him on call on some holidays, but there are some holidays where he deserves to have it off just like the rest of us. So,
Or if he wants to go on a vacation.
and if he's entitled to, he's got vacation time, he's got sick time, he's got personal time.
Mhm.
And again, we'll just have to make do with what we have. It's all we can do is make the best of it, and that's all.
Okay. Well, budget constraints of the town mean, lower level of service, and we just have to hopefully have people understand that and not get frustrated because we can't provide the service that they would like because it's not funded. Okay, I don't think we need to take any action. I don't think we have any objections
No,
to the proposed budget reductions from the town administrator, so we'll carry on. Okay, next agenda item is the Board of Health fee schedule, and Matt, you're proposing a change. Please walk us through that.
So, before we entered into the regulations where D-night was required, we were offering people an incentive to do D-night, and we gave them a reduction. If they did do D-night, they would get a reduction from the application fee to apply. But since D-night now has become mandatory for new construction, both in and out of the watershed, I don't see the point of keeping that incentive there if it's mandatory. So it didn't make any sense. So I'm just requesting that we bring that back up to where it should be, which I believe is $250. And then the other change I wanted to make is if somebody, leave an incentive for somebody if they come in, if they're doing some kind of upgrade that's not new construction, and they voluntarily want to do D-night, maybe give them a $25 incentive off of the, of the fee.
Comments, questions?
I'm good with that, I guess.
Okay, then I will take a motion to adopt the revised fee schedule as proposed by the director, where disposal system construction permit for residential new construction will be $250, and for the disposal system construction application for residential repairs, where there is a voluntary D-night system, to have offer a $25 fee reduction to the application. So that would be from $200, it would then be $175.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the revised fees, effective, we should make an effective date, January 1st.
Sure, January 1st.
effective January 1st. Is that okay for that motion? All set, Bob, with the motion? Okay. Then we'll call a vote. All in favor? Aye, that's unanimous. Thank you. I'm going to quickly go to agenda item number 4, because I think 3 and 5 will have some more discussion, lengthier discussion. So the next meeting date would be scheduled for ostensibly December 26th, which I believe is a holiday. Is that a holiday?
It is for us, that's our day for Christmas.
Christmas.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be on the 26th in any event. Given the fact that we've been fairly light, we had discussed just canceling that meeting, and the next regular meeting would be January 9th. We just need to confirm that. We haven't really, as far as I know, gotten a flood of activity that would require a meeting on the 26th.
No.
Okay. So I take a motion to cancel the December 26th, 2022 meeting, and our next regular scheduled meeting will be January 9th, I believe is the date.
Yes, January 9th.
So moved. We didn't do that last time?
No, we talked about, I think people would check, we
Okay, so moved.
We'll work it out.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. I think there may be, and we'll see as the discussion goes along, we may do a working meeting, because there are a number of topics that have been coming up that might require sort of an informal meeting. Next item is the proposed comments on the DEP draft revisions to Title V and proposed new watershed permit regulations. And I'm going to turn the floor over to Phil for his presentation on what he's, overview and presentation, I guess.
I guess, well, the biggest news is, that probably everybody at the table knows, is that the public comment period got extended, I think, as a result from just the general negative reaction, some of which was expressed in the letter that I drafted, but didn't send, because we had until the end of the week, but now we have until the end of January to submit public comments, and then there's a series of public hearings and public information sessions, going, I think, starting in mid-January for the public hearings, I think. So, so I guess that's good. Although I think it's, the dynamic is that it seems to be a, so to speak, a one-way dialogue in a certain way. That is, people are commenting, but at least at the public hearing level, you don't really hear back, as to what impact the comments have had on the department. And so I don't think we'll really know whether they're going to suggest that there are going to be changes as a result of the, of the comment period. So the thrust of the comments were that obviously, that the board and I think the town as a whole, supports achieving, compliance with total maximum daily load, which means reducing the amount of nitrogen going into the river. And I think that the way that the choices that the department's regulation lays out, makes it, clear that if those choices are presented to us, that the permit route is, much more sensible, choice to make, because I think, because I think there's a lot of flexibility built into it. But also, I think part of the problem is, from a communications with the public point of view, is that it's opaque in the way that, they have definitions of 5 or 6 different kinds of plans that can be submitted, and it's it's very difficult to really translate that into the individual situations that each community is facing in terms of they would be required to submit or how they would tailor their plan to their specific needs. And I think that's what a lot of communities are kind of grappling with, in the fact that so much time has passed, between the time when the data was collected for the MEP reports that led to the TMDLs, that people are also questioning, the validity of the current relevance of those reports. So that said, and I think is reflected in my comments, I just think that the way that the Title V revisions have been structured, which I think are primarily coercive in their intent, that is coercing communities to to adopt the permit plan rather than put the burden of system-wide conversions of all, or of a big chunk of existing septic systems. And there is some imbalance there that is seeing, well, one solution has to be achieved in 5 years, and the other solution can be in 20 plus years. And so I think that also affects how people are viewing the plan, or the comparison between the two plans. So my comments primarily focus, and I guess just drilling down on whether the board agrees with the thrust of the comments, is that I think that it unfairly, I'll just call it, penalizes people who have adopted or have been compelled by our regulations to integrate nitrogen-reducing technology. And so it is the people who have kind of stepped up, or in response to our regulation, been compelled to adopt nitrogen-reducing technology, and that those are the ones potentially who would be subject to a successive upgrade, at least at this point of time, where it's very unclear that of what the net environmental benefit of that would be. So, so my sense is that the department doesn't have to go that far in motivating communities to, oh, thank you, in motivating communities to choose the permit approach, as to put people who have installed fully compliant nitrogen-reducing systems, to have to convert their systems. So that's really the thrust of the comments. And so in some ways, to be honest, if we choose the permit approach, all of that goes away. So that, but on the other hand, since we don't really know what will happen in the future, and I don't think that a good case has been made for doing that, having that approach, that is what I can see kind of an inequitable approach, that's what I focused my comments on. Okay. And the part about, a lot of the introductory part about, here are all the reasons why you should extend the comment period, I have to change that. Right. But I still think, that it is, it's uniquely and excessively coercive, I think, the choices that they've made, and I'm not quite sure why they felt compelled to, to do that. So we'll see. If
Okay.
you guys are comfortable with that, then we do something like this modified, and then also seeing what kind of feedback happens during the public hearing,
Yeah.
et cetera, process. you know.
Right, I think, obviously, we can sit on this a little bit, given the extended
yeah.
timeframe. And I want to be clear for the public that, I mean, I would advocate for the town to do the watershed permit in any case, regardless of how any adjustments to the other option are, because A, that provides us the more flexibility. It incorporates some of the other approaches that we might want to take, whether it's fertilizer reduction or whatever, as a part of the comprehensive solution that the sort of the Title V proposed revisions is sort of a very blunt instrument. And we, I think of all the, certainly non-Cape, I don't know what's happening on the Cape, but non-Cape communities of all the other South Coast communities have been the most proactive around making progress to achieving our TMDLs, so that maybe even by the time DEP comes around to assessing whether we're a nitrogen sensitive area, it may be moot because we've accomplished. So I don't want to get over, I want people to understand that there's Westport's on a good path. We're doing a targeted approach. You know, we're working on sewer. We have focused regulatory changes that sort of target the most, you know, the most bang for the buck kind of stuff around septic upgrades, and that, you know, so we're in good shape relative to what might be coming down as a regulatory regime, and that because we've done a lot of planning, all that federal money that's around right now, funneled through the state or whatever, we are better positioned to take advantage of, and we want to be able to move forward on that and not miss the opportunity for getting our share of that funding by sitting and waiting. So I think Westport is really well placed. I really appreciate the sort of the digging that you've done, the extended amount of time and research on reviewing all the drafts, participating in info sessions and the public hearing. I sat in on one info session, or most of one. And I think you have some really valuable, especially the technical comments that are probably would go over the head of most Westporters, most of the public in general. And there's some that I'm not sure I understand myself. So I think there's some technical things that we can sort of chew on and you know, in a working group session maybe
Right.
after there's been some more discussion. And then I think my personal opinion is we focus on you know, what are our concerns about the watershed permit process, because that's the one that we're most likely to be subject to if we don't achieve what we need to beforehand. And so that there may be some more comments that we can make on that, in addition to what you've already outlined.
Yeah.
And then we'll see, you know, sort of where things are with the Title V regulatory changes. And I think, again, that a lot of these technical, you know, sort of in-depth comments could be really helpful to DEP to think through, you know, their approach there, even if it's not going to be something that Westport will have to deal with. But you know, I want to be clear, because I don't want there to be this confusion about, you know, it's not happening right away. B, we're unlikely to go that path. So I'm going to suggest that we come back to this in a working meeting. I'm not sure the timing. I mean, should we just postpone till January? Are there info sessions or just 2 more?
Let's see, I think I printed out what the schedule is.
Okay.
There are information sessions on the 17th of January, and I think like the 18th of January.
Okay.
And then the public hearing, official public hearings are on the 24th and the 25th. So,
I will say, having been a state regulator and involved in drafting state regulations, once you're in a public hearing process, or in the public hearing, you can't make comment. All you
right,
can do is
yeah,
receive
yeah,
it.
you
So,
can't, yeah, I agree.
um,
Yeah, and I think that was, I mean, there was, but even in the, I think even in the public information sessions, that it's very difficult to talk through these things when you have three and a half minutes to talk, because they're complicated. And I think that, I think one of the things which I reflected in the comment, I was just a little frustrated with, was that, we sent them this letter with a whole lot of questions, and I think there was an anticipation that they would get back to us, either setting up a follow-up meeting or responding in some way, and they didn't do that. And so then you had to still hadn't made that kind of progress, which really does, I think, relate to the questions that you're raising about how they perceive what TMDL compliance means. And it is, and the extent to which our plans can fully reflect what we believe the current status is, and where we're going, versus a more formal view from, their side, which relates, much more to the model's nitrogen loading numbers. And just one more thing I would say, at the same time, I think, and as it relates to the permit, it has been a long time since DEP since this long ago initiative started, where DEP has come out publicly and said, we're going to take a position to compel people or towns or individuals, septic system owners, one way or the other, to do something. And I think now the town is in a position to go to the public and say, like the gorilla is out of the closet. Now we need to do something, because otherwise this is going to move into some compliance and enforcement mechanism of one way or the other. And so as compared to where we were with the plan, which was, well, here's some options that we can consider, but no one's really telling us to make choices. I think now we're moving in the direction of, well, some choices have to be made, or there will be consequences, and the consequences have been laid out in these two regulations. And so I think that clears the mind, so to speak. I mean, gets people to really think, okay, now I have to make a choice. And I think that is timely to do. So I think it's good from that point of view. I just don't want even us as a board to feel that, that because we were out ahead of the curve, that somehow it would come back and have negative consequences to people that we would need to defend if we didn't really feel we needed to, and that's the kind of thing. And that's why I hope the comments would push the department to rethink that aspect of what they're doing, because I think it's not necessary to achieve what they want to achieve.
And being that I listened in on that meeting and you stumped them with some of these questions that you're raising and you put in your, in the letter from the board, that your thinking and your ability to analyze every little nuance is, I think,
Yeah.
really important, Phil.
Yeah.
And quite valuable, and I don't know if people really appreciate how valuable that is, that you're able, because you had worked for the DEP
Yeah.
and your understanding of all of that. So
Yeah.
thank you for the work that you've done on it.
Thank you.
So-
Well, yeah, anyway, so,
Great, thank you. So why don't we anticipate scheduling a working meeting to kind of drill down? I know you have already suggested you might, the front part has to update because
yeah,
they've done
yeah,
the
yeah,
extended.
yeah.
And there are some sections I can, that where just.
Right, yeah. I mean, I
So-
got these to Matt without, first of all, I'm a terrible self-editor, but also I got these to Matt just so
We
you
could
would
get
see
on.
just generally, so we could have this meeting,
Yeah.
and I thought I'd get a feedback from the meeting and then we could fine tune it. But now we have a lot of time to fine tune it.
Right, so I
So
think we
that's
have
good.
time, and we may have 2 meetings to discuss this, but
Yeah.
I would like, before we finalize it, to have the benefit of one of those
Sure,
info
yeah,
sessions,
absolutely.
another info session, to see if they have refined their messaging.
Yeah,
Because in the hearing, we won't hear that. So let's table this for now. We'll revisit it in January.
Do you want us to try to schedule a working meeting
Um,
in January, or?
Let's come back to that because we have a 4:30 appointment, and we can revisit that when we come back to other business after the discussion with Mr. Potter, which I will call
Right.
now, is with regard to 2 Atlantic Avenue. This is a 4-bedroom house being demolished and proposed to be demolished and rebuilt on a 10,000 square foot lot. And we have in front of us a letter from an architect we just received and a proposed plan. So, Mr. Potter, you have the floor.
Okay, the issue was, at last we met, was compliance with new construction for Title V. And what it says is that there needs to be a reason why the home needs to be demolished, other than just the fact that the owner wants to demolish it. And I apologize for the lateness of the letter. The architect, who has been working on this project for a couple of years, his father passed away. And he just didn't get a chance to write the letter until today. But it's a pretty simple letter, and I think it's pretty much self-explanatory. The essence of it is that he was hired by them to review their primary residence and upgrade it. They need handicap accessibility, even for the house that's there now. Mr. Corrick is not doing well physically. He's retired from his job in North Carolina and then moving back here permanently. And he cannot climb stairs or anything. So when the architect walked in the lower level, the basement, so to speak, he saw mold everywhere. And he did a couple of, checked the concrete out, and it molds into the concrete foundation, et cetera. And what he's doing is, he said the best thing to do, because as I said, there was a fire years ago, they found out, and they cosmetically covered it up, and it's a beautiful job inside the house, but there's still burnt wood and mold growing inside. I mean, you're right on the ocean. The house is heated very gingerly in the wintertime because nobody's there. They really haven't lived in this house in 2 years for a summer. They were here for a week or so, 2 weeks this year. They lived with a father down on Brayton Point Road. So it's just full of mold, and that's the reason for the demolition. They don't want to spend $1 million because they feel like it. It's because the necessity. She's terrified of mold, as a lot of people are. And that's the reason for the season.
Okay, so the question, the last time we were gonna get a mold report to, get some feedback from DEP, whether this met new construction, definition, replacement repair of a building that has been totally or partially destroyed or demolished. And so whether that could be considered a trigger for, being partially destroyed, I guess is what we're trying to assess. So we have this letter from the architect now. I don't know if that would qualify as a mold report, but he's given us some information. So let me open it up to the floor for folks to consider.
Matt, what are your thoughts on this? Matt, I
Mhm.
was asking Matt.
So, the last time we left off, like, was just said, I wanted to see DEP, what they were gonna say, we were waiting for a mold report. But we just got this like literally like an hour ago or so. So, I mean, I can send this up to them tomorrow and see what they say about it, but it's really comes down to, you know, what the board is gonna view this as new construction or not, cause it makes a difference on what they can and can't do, as far as meeting new construction requirements, possibly denotification. It's really, you know, how much does the board wanna see any more information?
So I just wanted to, I would just want to take a minute to kind of clarify just something, because I didn't realize, because a lot of this, I didn't realize when we had this discussion the last time, and it's partially, my fault, it probably would have helped to have the plan, that this property is outside the watershed. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and so the regulation that we had adopted effective in October would not be applicable if we had approved, depending on how we treat the plan that we approved in September.
Right.
And is this the plan that you submitted?
Yes, it's just to tie the new home
Right,
into the
right.
existing system.
So we looked at this plan, and the only thing that is required that you got approval for in this plan was to approve the interconnection.
Connection.
So we've got a situation where before the effective date of the regulation regarding new construction and the requirement for D-Night systems went into effect, we approved this plan. Well, I mean, it
Never came before the board.
didn't come before the board,
Right.
but because I think it was viewed as a minor,
Yes,
like this is, in the normal course of things, this would not have come before the board.
that's correct.
It was just a minor repair. I'm just wondering, I'm not necessarily making a value judgment, just so I make sure I understand, what the issue, kind of what the issues are. So, the issue with new construction, just to clarify, relates to the fact that if this is considered to be new construction under Title V, then you can't meet the 100-foot setback from the well. And as far as I could see, there's no place that there is no place on the property to move the well 100 feet away, because I just took my tape to it and.
And that variance was granted in 2008.
Right. For whatever, this was an upgrade that was done in 2008?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't, so now let me go back to the question that we're asking. So, if you're, so this would constitute, if you knock this building, I'm just looking at the Title V definition. So if you totally constructed a new building, for which an occupancy permit is required, which is what you're proposing to do, you're gonna totally demolish this building, then it would constitute new construction unless we conclude that this is a building that has been totally or partially destroyed or demolished. And we would have to conclude that the presence of mold in the building constitutes total or partial destruction. And to be honest, what troubles me about it is that I mean, you've got a building that is essentially right on the water, that has not been inhabited, that has not been heated for most of its life, because they spent like over a decade down in North Carolina, so extended periods of time when they weren't using it at all. And the fact that mold developed there, I mean, I get mold in my house,
Right.
and I live there year-round,
Right,
okay? And, because that's what happens in Westport.
yeah,
People get mold
yeah.
in unheated houses, or even heated houses. And so and it's because of that, it's difficult for me to get to the point of saying that we are going to conclude that when there's mold in the house, not that it can't be repaired, that is, no one has come in to us and said, this is not, the cost of removing the mold would be more than the cost of taking the house down. Right? I as a professional mold remover, it's impossible, can't be done.
Right.
House cannot be renovated internally without that. I'm very reluctant to conclude, with all due respect to your client's anxiety, which I don't, no one wants to live in a moldy house. So I'm reluctant to conclude that applies to it. But it does then create this fundamental problem for us, which is, it's not a fundamental problem, but the issue of, well, then we have to give this a new construction variance.
So, so I think there's two things. One is we have to make a determination whether it meets the definition of new construction or not. And then the second part of that is if it meets the new construction definition, it triggers certain consequences both under Title V and our local regulation.
Right,
And
then
our
you're in
local-
two differences, that's right.
Yeah, our local regulation has a variance provision, as does Title V. I don't know, and I would turn to Matt about new construction under Title V. What would the impacts be? Now, we don't necessarily have to go that far if we make that determination that it's not new construction, but at this point, I personally also am not this. I would certainly want from DEP, if they think this is, based on this letter, that this is an adequate trigger for an exemption from a new construction, for not meeting the new construction definition under that partial or total destruction piece of it. I'm not sure I see it myself, but if DEP said yes, then I would certainly defer to their judgment. So that's my,
Then let me take one step back.
So let me go back and read this.
okay,
Let's assume that it's new construction under Title V, and the mold is not an issue for demolition. Let's assume that it's gonna be a new construction permit, and therefore, it should come as close as possible to meeting Title V.
right,
The system passed the inspection, Title V inspection, and is working fine. The only issue is the well is 77 feet away,
Yeah,
but that variance was granted in 2008. The well tests out, I think, at 505, 506. So then it becomes the issue, do you need D-night? Now, don't forget, this was passed before, plan presented before October 15th. So
right, but under Title V, when it's a lot that's only 10,000 square feet,
yeah, I understand that.
then there's a nitrogen loading
I understand that.
trigger.
But the previous board agreed to the plan with the variance, and they said it was fine. It was not in the Westport watershed, prior to October 15th. It's still not, but that exemption is gone. So the board has to make a decision, because we're between 5 and 10, which Title V says the board has to consider whether you need D-night or not. And it tests out at, I think, it's 510, 505, something like that. So,
So
I'm just-
I see, that's where I think that there's apples and oranges a little bit getting mixed up here, because what happened previously is that this was treated, whatever you requested, and maybe it was the installation, you know, that there was replacement there, whatever that was done historically, that was considered an upgrade, and you got a local approval upgrade for it. And then when the board approved this interconnection, it was, I don't believe it was understood that you plan to demolish the whole house.
it's right on the plan.
Okay, well, but,
It shows the new home and it shows proposed home.
okay, well, so then maybe we have to deal with the fact of the error, but I'm just saying that if, I mean, our practice is at any time that a new construction plan is approved, it comes before the board. I'm just saying it wasn't treated as new construction. I'm not disagreeing with you that the plan said it was new construction, but really what you asked, you submitted the plan, and I wasn't in the room when it happened, but I don't think that you were saying to John or making it clear in the cover letter, I want this to be reviewed as new construction. I think you were saying, I'm just coming to get approval for a reconnection of this.
If it wasn't new construction, why would I create a house connection plan?
I don't know.
Why would I give you a plan showing the existing house? Why do I need a house connection? It's already connected. The fact that you're asking for a house you're not asking to reconnect the same
Right,
house.
so, right.
It's all there.
Right, I'm just saying that it wasn't picked up. But that is, I was just making the point that what the board did before, as far as approving this, was separate from now our considering this as a new construction plan, that's all. But there is a statement in the architect's letter, which I'm just actually going to read now. It says, after some destructive testing and careful study, it was determined that the concrete and cinder block walls enclosing the first level were saturated and contained mold throughout their entire thickness, with no good solution to permanently dry them out and keep them dry. Therefore, the group recommends that the existing structure be demolished. So, if there is no solution to removing the lead, then, maybe that meets the burden of proof.
But wouldn't we need to have someone who is an expert in removal say that that was the only option, not an architect?
I don't know.
I would
I don't
want
know.
an expert to say that there is no solution to go that way. I wouldn't feel comfortable unless it came from an expert in
Okay.
removal of mold.
Okay. Well,
But
I
what
think
I'm
that
saying is, forget the demolition because of the mold. I'm just saying that, why do I need D-night for this job? The plan was that the original system, or the upgraded system in 2008, which wasn't done by me, wasn't installed by me, was approved by the board. They got a variance from whatever it was, 77 feet from the well to the leach field, and so be it. Now you're asking to connect the same size house to the same 4-bedroom septic system. And what I'm saying is, I know that the water results, and that's what I'm looking for, are just over 5. So the board therefore has to make a determination between 5 and 10 if they will accept the plan. So I'm asking the board to forget the mold, let's just go on that route and see what you wanna do.
There's a distinction between what was done in 2008 was done as an upgrade, there was no change to the house at the time.
But
So,
I understand that, but
okay,
you're connecting to the same flow house, 4-bedroom to 4-bedroom system. I understand that. The board at that time obviously didn't care about new construction. It didn't matter because it was a repair.
right,
And all we're asking to do is to demolish the house and put a new house on the site with the same number of bedrooms.
right.
The system is not gonna change. It's not gonna change even if you add D-night. The system, it's passed. It's working fine.
So Lynn, are you, oh, I'm
Let
sorry.
me just finish.
Yeah.
But under Title V, no system serving new construction in areas where use of both an on-site system and a drinking water supply is proposed to serve the facility shall be designed to receive or shall receive more than 440 gallons of flow per acre.
I know, I understand that.
So that's what that's the difference between 2008, when you're coming in with a repair, you're not making any changes to the house, you're not rebuilding a new house. And now, if you're building a new house, this provision is triggered. So I think there is a difference. So the first question we have to evaluate is the new construction or not, and then
It's new construction, no question about it. It's new construction.
okay.
I mean, it's on the plan, it's new construction.
Well, I thought you were asking does it meet the new construction definition because of the mold being a trigger
Forget the
for?
mold.
Okay.
The mold isn't gonna matter to anybody, so forget it.
Okay,
The house is coming down, there's gonna be a new home to replace it. And then it's gonna be up on stilts, and there won't be any basement, so to speak, to attract mold and go up through the house. But it's the same flow, and we've always dealt with new construction being flow. And now in Title V, you find that point about new construction. But I'm saying that the board approved in 2008 a flow, a replacement system or an upgrade, whatever you wanna call it, for 4 bedrooms, and the house is still gonna be 4 bedrooms, so the flow hasn't increased. The variance was granted by the board, no matter who was on the board, it was granted by the board.
right.
And that variance, I'm saying, should carry through to the present condition, even with a new construction on
I would interpret Title V differently than you are.
it. I know that.
But I don't understand that, if you're saying forget about the mold,
Yeah,
then what you're saying is that if there's an existing compliance system on a site, and someone comes in and says, I'm gonna knock down this house, but it's a 3-bedroom house, I'm gonna knock it down and build a new house,
yeah.
that Title V says you don't treat that as new construction.
No, it's not what I'm saying.
Yes, you are, because you said forget about the mold, it doesn't matter because we approved this system in the past. And that is not what Title V says. Title V says if you build a new building, if
Yes.
you construct a new building,
I understand that.
and it requires an
Well,
occupancy permit, it's Title V.
What's the ultimate result? The flow increase in construction for years has been no increase in flow. You
Because we don't-
require deed restrictions, so the flow can't change, okay? So what's the difference here? New construction. What does that mean? For you people, it means D-night. That's what it means. That's what you want.
Under our local regulation, but under Title V, new construction means,
But Title V doesn't go that one step and say you need D-night. All it's saying is.
No, we're not getting
No.
to D-night. We're not even getting to the D-night part.
we haven't even gotten to that part.
We're just
We've
saying
got
if
to-
you're gonna say, go ahead. Well, if you're gonna treat this as new construction, then you have, well, maybe more, you have 2 problems. One is that you have a well that doesn't comply in the distance, and 2, you have nitrogen loading limitations that
What's-
don't comply.
But what's changed?
What has changed is that you've decided to tear down the entire house.
And what's the impact? The lot is the lot, the system's the system. Nothing's changing except
I don't
a piece of
disagree with
paper that says certificate for compliance, new construction. That's the only,
Because
it's
when
words.
you have
There's gonna be no more sewerage deposited in that soil, in that lot. There's no increase in flow.
Well,
Well,
there
this,
will be, because they're gonna be living there year-round.
well, no, but it says,
That's not-
but
you
listen
can't
to
go
what,
by
listen
that.
to
Now,
what the,
the flow was the
listen,
flow.
listen to what the definition says, okay? Title V, the construction of a new building for which an occupancy permit is required, or second test, an increase in the actual design flow to any system. So there are two tests, right? A new building for which an occupancy permit is required, or an increase in design flow. So you're arguing, what I hear you're arguing to me is, forget the new construction of a new building for an occupancy permit. Just ignore that because there's no design flow.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you, well, okay, well, that's what I'm hearing.
No, I'm
You're
not.
saying-
I realize it's gonna require an occupancy permit.
Okay,
I realize that. I know, my
Okay.
question is, so what does that mean?
okay.
So how do I come into compliance? I'm saying I have a
Okay.
system that's in compliance right now.
Okay,
And the building of the new house is not gonna be an imposition on the septic system. There's gonna be no increase in flow, everything, there's no change in distance to the well. So what's the problem?
Okay, so I think where we're at is, we all now, around the table, agree that this is new construction.
Yes.
So we've answered the first question. We don't need to go to DP, we all agree, this is new construction.
Yep.
The second part where we are not in, we do not yet have a consensus, and the key people to have the consensus is here at the board, and I think maybe we do have a consensus, which you're not, maybe not agreeing with, but is, if it's new construction, what are the requirements under Title V that you have to meet? And as Phil just outlined, it's the nitrogen loading and it's the well distance. And you have a prior granting of a well waiver or variance under an upgrade provision, not under new construction. So that's one issue that we would have to assess. The circumstances are different based on how your project is now viewed under Title V, because it's new construction. And then the nitrogen loading limitations, which will require some way to address, either through nitrogen credit land or some other way, not necessarily DNITE, but
Not necessarily, no.
that could be one thing. And then so there's two provisions under Title V that we have to come to grips with. And then there is the third provision, which is triggered by our local regulation, which you can make an argument, and we may be sympathetic to that this was submitted before the effective date of that. And so, maybe we can take that off the table because it was submitted before the effective date of that regulation, and so therefore would not apply. But we are still facing two situations, two provisions under Title V that we have to come to grips with. And that's, I think those are the most important
When that-
matters we have to discuss and resolve
To
at
the
this
best of
point.
my knowledge, in 2008, that paragraph in Title V did exist. That was not changed, or am I wrong?
I believe you are correct, but it was not,
But I guess the board didn't pick it up then.
no, because it was not considered new construction at that time. So,
What I mean is, there was a lot of demolition and new construction, but taking a lot of houses down.
I
And that
can't
was-
speak to a prior board, you're
I
correct.
understand, but all I'm saying, the board is the board is the board. When the board makes a decision, it carries on. Whatever decisions you make here, carry on.
Absolutely, but the decision around there was no decision with regard to new construction
No, there
in
was not.
2008.
Okay, no.
So we are making that decision for the first time
Oh.
here because it is now considered new construction.
Okay,
The second part around the well variance, the question is, does that carry forward even though it was approved under not a new construction
right.
provision? So those are two matters that have to be resolved. I'm not sure do we have all the information we would need? I mean, this would require a variance, and so there has to be the whole public process.
Why is it gonna be a variance? What's the issue?
I'm sorry.
The well is 77 feet, that's not gonna change. We're not asking to do this, this is already done.
Okay,
To me, the implication of a new construction just means you have to meet new construction standards to the best of your ability here, because you're never gonna do that.
right.
And the only way I can do it because of lack of area is denitrification.
Okay.
So tell me, what am I missing here? The question is D-nite or no D-nite, that's the
Or
question.
nitrogen credit land.
There's no nitrogen credit line.
Let's say buy something, right?
Maybe I'll go down the beach and get some down there, how's that sound?
I don't know,
I've done nitrogen credit line, I know what that entails, and it's not
okay,
worth it.
I have not, so, for, we have to make a determination about compliance with 15.2142. And I think we need to get a proposal from you how you would come into compliance with that.
My question to you is, would denitrification solve the problem? So that I know what to do.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's a
You
fair
can't give me
question.
a formal approval tonight,
Right,
but am I headed in the right direction? Just give me a
Okay.
hint.
that's a fair question. I'm not the
No,
expert.
no, you don't. Just give
I'm
me a
gonna
hint.
defer and ask Matt and/or Phil, based upon Title V, would denitrification, I think, the 440 gallons, you could only technically have 110 gallons for 10,000 square feet, right?
With denitrification, the math works out to 1.5 bedrooms for that lot. So the board would have to make if they wanted to compromise with D-nite because of the size of the lot, and, you know, the house is gonna go up.
It's a
and
4-bedroom house.
It's a 4-bedroom house with using the calculations for an IA system that reduces nitrogen, which is 550 gallons a day, given the known lot size, comes out to 1.5 bedrooms.
Okay.
So the board would either have to make a compromise on that and move it forward, or do some kind of new construction variance, which I'd have to look into exactly what goes into that. I'm not sure if that has to go up to DEP or not.
Okay.
The variance for what?
The variance,
If you can't meet
because it's
new
new
construction.
construction, you're asking for
I don't,
variances, so.
The distance from the well, I mean, it is,
But it's really up to the board, how,
I
if they
mean-
just wanna compromise and move this along, or,
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, well, I think that we should do that. I mean, I think, I think that the construction work here, I mean, that is, you're gonna remove the entire foundation and elevate the house, right?
that's the idea.
That's the idea here. And so, you know, the fact that, you know, that the concrete and cinder block walls enclosing the first level were saturated and contained, we contained the mold, they're gonna be taken out just to raise the house up.
Right, which is
So
required
it-
because they're in the
It's
flood zone.
required anyway
Yeah.
to do this. This is not in the, you know, in the interior wall situation.
No.
So that's going. So treating it as new construction, I think, and I think that is a good outcome. I mean, because they're trying to, you know, preserve the house and, you know, where the, you know, if you look at the topography of the site, and essentially the well is up gradient of the SAS. So I think that, you know, we should do that. That we should just, you know, accept it. I think if this was an undeveloped lot, that someone was coming in and asking to put a 4-bedroom house on.
You can't do it.
Lot, then I would say no.
Right.
You know, we wouldn't do it. But this is a different situation. I think this is someone who is basically trying to preserve their existing home and put it above the floodplain. And so that's my approach, and I don't see from an environmental impact point of view that, you know, from a well point of view, I think we can, you know, we'll be asking for 3 years of well testing, so that will, you know, verify that, and according to what, because it's, well, house hasn't been used that much, but according to Len, the level in the well is low, and who knows, it might be coming from property behind it, who knows? So anyway,
Okay, so what I'm hearing from you, if I understand correctly, is that we would consider a variance allowing this new construction project, even though it can't strictly meet the nitrogen loading, but by calculation, but that the maximum feasible compliance
No, I
would be
understand.
would be the a denitrifying component. Is that?
yeah, that's what I
Okay.
think. I think that makes sense, and I think, yeah, and I
okay.
think because there's no other alternatives on the site as far as distance goes, and because of how the system is laid out, I
Existing-
think that's okay.
Existing conditions, limitations. Donna, let me
I'm
give
just-
you,
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, you said that something was submitted in 2008. It wasn't this plan?
no,
Okay.
It's in your file upstairs.
okay.
That's how
Yeah.
I obtained it.
I was
just
confused about
transferred
you
it.
saying that they made a decision based on this plan.
No.
That's,
No, I didn't design it, I didn't install it, but I pulled
Okay.
your record for it and represented that on this plan.
Okay.
After I asked them for a Title V inspection to make sure it was still functioning.
You know, I agree with, support what Phil is saying about what we
Okay.
would accept.
So, I'm okay with that. That's, I think, the best we can hope for.
Can I just ask one question?
Yep.
So no matter what the outcome is there, the septic system that's there now is staying there?
It's staying.
You're like, okay, that's all,
I gotta put a D-night component,
okay.
Okay.
remove the tank and do something with it, whatever, DN 960 or Advantax or something.
All right.
Okay.
But what I'm gonna do, to be truthful with you, is now I'm gonna go back to my client and tell them if they wanna have a mold study done, they can do that. Or just do the D-night septic system.
Right.
It's up to them.
Right, okay,
They can't be here, they're still in North Carolina, so.
okay. So, procedurally, I think what you have gotten from the board is we are willing to accept as the maximum feasible compliance a
Right.
D-night component to meet the new construction, you know, best possible
Right.
system. But that, it would be a variance process under 5.411.
So you gotta notify all the abutters.
Yeah, so we,
Yeah, it's just a local upgrade approval hearing.
no, it's a variance.
See, I don't agree with that, that's all right.
I believe.
It exists, the system exists.
Yeah. No, the system exists, but we're treating what you're proposing as new
Under new
construction.
construction, I can't do it, they can't do it.
Well, I think we're saying you can, that we'll give you a variance for that, because we're allowed to vary, we're allowed to
Right.
vary almost anything if we find that there's manifest injustice and.
And then you have to go on to the state.
No, you don't. No, we can do it all here.
You can do it all
We
here.
can do it
No,
locally,
no,
but
no.
we will have to write it up
We'll have to write
a letter with all the details.
All right, I'll present that to my people and see
Yeah.
what they wanna do.
I know you're frustrated, but I appreciate the
Oh,
time.
I'm always frustrated.
I appreciate the time and effort, and the information from the architect.
Another 15 years in retirement.
Oh, my God.
15.
See you later.
You gotta enjoy life, Len.
Have a good night.
Good night, and happy holidays.
Yes.
I
Happy
enjoyed debating.
I know you do. And the redness in your face shows how much you enjoy it. I'd like to
We
take
give
your
you a
blood
run
pressure.
for your money, right? Okay. Let us come back to, thank you, everybody. We want to, the question about setting up a date for a working meeting is where we left off. I'm going to hold off on that because we have some other topics for discussion, so let's just see where that leads us for planning a meeting. So the next item for discussion under other business is discussing the proposed FAQ document for cesspool closeout that Phil has worked on together with, I believe, the Watershed Alliance.
Right.
This is also something that we could, sort of do some tweaking or editing. I do have a concern about, I'm not sure that we have a consensus understanding about septic tanks prior to a pit and whether that considered a cesspool or not. I think Matt is trying to get an answer from DEP on that. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm waiting for, Mary Beth, she was gonna bring it to the, I forget what she called it, the think tank, in essence, to debate that or talk about it and get back to me.
Well, that's interesting, okay.
So that's one piece. I think, again, this is probably, well, let me stop there. I'm sorry, I should not have jumped the gun. Let me turn it over first to Phil to talk through what he's put together and how he sees this going forward.
Oh, well, yeah. So I think that the way the design idea of this is that it would look like this as a flyer.
Yeah.
Is that what you said? Okay. And, and then I took these, I've kind of based these questions on what, on the FAQ that Rhode Island had done for their initiative, which goes back several years ago. And I think that the only one that I thought, was interesting, beyond the typical one was why putting in the question about, installing a pool or garage in my yard and replacing a cesspool, and it's because it'll occupy the space. And when I was doing my little work on going through the files, I actually saw situations where people had a cesspool and we gave them approval for an in-ground pool, going way back, and way back a ways. And I had never really thought about that issue before, but I'm realizing it is something, that people ought to be aware of. So I think it is, and obviously we need to get, the definition clarified under Title V. And I also think make clear, that you can't now put a septic tank in front of a cesspool in order to get, if you have a cesspool, putting a septic tank in front of it is not permissible. But what in terms of, so to speak, the rollout of it, I guess I am concerned about the time it would take, based on where we are now, to understand where every cesspool is in town before we would reach out to anybody. Just because I should ask you guys because you're closer to it, but what I understood is that we're at letter H. And, so we would basically start off the new year at letter H, and by the time, we got more to the end of the alphabet, we'd be in spring or summer, the way it seems to be going. And that and that, so now we're halfway through before we're even reminding people that this obligation is coming forward. And so, whereas I think that we would be able to identify some subsets of the population that we know have septic systems and be able to do some outreach earlier, maybe get some feedback from people earlier, maybe enter into agreements with people, I don't know. So it's just that kind of having the passage of time. Well, I think the merits of what we're doing is really great. You know, that it will inevitably put us in a situation where, you know, time will run out. So that's kind of my concern. And we don't have to decide that right now, but it is, but I think through, which kind of, you know, so, and for example, which I mentioned before, which kind of goes back, which is I think that we could verify a fairly good chunk, or, you know, a subset of sites which are in, let's say, close proximity to the river with cesspools, that we might begin to reach out to those people just in terms of how we might, even once we get the whole list, you know, to begin to prioritize in some way. So, and so that, so besides doing what we ever want to do to find, so that this would go out and there would be a cover letter that, you know, Matt would sign, I assume, that would, you know, talk about why they're getting this flyer and just want to remind people and of their, you know, their responsibility, and, you know, and I'd even, you know, suggested the idea of trying to get into situations where we could get people under agreement, and that might allow, assuming they're not failed systems, that would allow them to have somewhat longer time as long as they made that commitment to do it as an incentive, which is another idea that we could test, so to speak. So.
Well, I'll let Donna go
No,
first.
I thought it's good. There is some editing and things that we can work on in this. But I think it's helpful. The question I have about this, though, is this something that we can have done and distributed to the people we already know have cesspools?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Is that what you're, okay.
That's what I'm saying, you know,
yeah, I
because,
don't wanna-
right, that so we created this list whenever we want to start to do it, you know,
Okay.
in February, maybe the anniversary or whatever, and, you know, somewhere around there, and send this to people who we know have cesspools.
So,
And then continue to roll it out as we begin to add more people.
okay.
That-
So there's two things. One, I think it would be good to have a working meeting to fine tune this, but also to talk a little bit more about the rollout strategy. I think you're right, there's urgency because we want to give people as much time as possible.
Yes.
We want to make sure that we think through the rollout strategy. Because I think, so let me backtrack
Mhm.
and give you an update where we are. We have gotten an Excel spreadsheet from the assessor's
Right.
office of all the lots as of November 1st, I believe. And we have now added fields to record what kind of septic system is in place, or if there's a plan pending, when it was built or installed, and, you know, comments to clarify. So Donna and I have been working on taking John's data, double checking it and transcribing it or entering it into that spreadsheet.
Mhm.
So you're right, John is up to the middle at H's. We've entered the data for up through D, let's say, roughly speaking. So we do have information. I think now that we've got the spreadsheet set up, I can probably start working from the Z's backwards and help move that forward. But I think before we do the outreach, we need to, like you were talking about, agreements, we need to sort of have our options in our head about how we respond to people who've got cesspools, and they get this information, they say, oh God, what do I do now? So I think that's worthy of a working group meeting, that we really hash that out and see where, you know, make sure that we're prepared for, to respond to owners once they
Right,
get this.
Right.
And I'm not sure that I've got my head wrapped around that yet. I think that's a worthy, like just that topic alone for the working group. Because I think you're right, we need to start moving forward, because it's 3 years from February 1st that people have to. And I think, I mean, we have to say, you know, you've got a cesspool, it's over 50 years old. Any sort of house system, heating system, whatever, you know, needs upgrading and maintenance, and it's time. And we want to give you an advance warning so you can get planning. But what kind of resource information we want to give them, you know, just thinking about the package so that it's as helpful and constructive and moving forward as possible. And what are our options? You know, how do we help with the septic loan and all that kind of thing?
Yeah, no, you know, I agree with that, and it obviously will, you know, I mean, depending on what the response is like, you know, it could be fairly resource intensive when
Right.
people get back. And just, right, and like I said, in addition to what you had, what I did, I can go back and now figure this out, you know, I had the consultant's report and spreadsheet from what they did, you know, in which they identified the septic systems. And I went through their list to file verify, but I wasn't doing
Yeah.
you know, with the assessor sheet, just to see, you know, what their status was, and I wasn't looking through upgrades that might have been, you know, sitting on somebody's desk. But the advantage, or a tool that we could use if we wanted to use this distance thing as a priority is that all those, is that you can sort all their files based on distance to watershed, their address and the distance to watershed. So if we wanted to do that as a way to, you know, as a way to do it, we could take advantage of that, and I guess kind of leapfrog over the alphabetical way of doing it, and just say at some point, this is based on the pump reports, this is at one time identified as a cesspool, and then we'd have to update it, but.
So for all the ones that were identified as cesspools, you've gone into the file to
Yes.
verify it's a
Yes.
cesspool?
Well, I have, I believe I have done that, yes.
Can I
Yes.
borrow that?
Yes,
Get a copy?
so, yeah, I
'Cause I think
think,
that might be helpful in helping us move
yeah,
it forward.
yeah, and I'm just, so I made, yeah, so, I'll make you, I can do this now, I can make you a copy of this, yeah, so this was what I call the tip list. And, yeah, so I went back through all of these and made little notes on the side of them as to what they, as to what I found in the file.
Okay, and it looks like NP might be no plan?
No plan.
Oh,
Yeah.
good, we have similar coding.
Yes, yeah. And then there's some of them, yeah, exactly. And I tried to make a little
Comments.
comments on them, some which I've gone back and confused myself about what they mean, but yes. So,
Well, that might be helpful.
yeah,
to help,
and so there's,
target.
you know, I don't know how many of it, so there's like 118 files I looked through. I think.
Okay.
And, yes,
Well, that's,
Because what we have done, the entire database or spreadsheet now has been updated with all of the pending repairs, the
right,
problem variances, the pending as-built and so on. So, that's already all in.
yeah,
The, what's not in is new construction, because we don't need to
Yeah.
worry about that, because that's all gonna be D-nice going forward, so,
yeah,
it won't be a cesspool. So, let me, get a copy of that.
yeah,
Then
yeah,
when we scheduled our working meeting, I will have some more, updated information, and I can do a count on, what we've got so far. We can, what the spreadsheet does not have is the distance to river stuff, but we can cross-reference that later. I'm not an expert on that stuff,
Right.
kind of stuff, but,
yeah, 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 yeah.
so let's, I think thank you for all your work on this. Now, the Watershed Alliance would be doing the mail.
They would, yeah, they would do the mailing. They
Okay.
would, I mean, they would do it and they would pay for
Postage,
it.
let alone,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
okay, that's great. So let's schedule a working meeting. I think, if we could do that first, then the Title V watershed permit in January. That will keep us busy during the holiday season. So let's, but just related to that, two things. I know you had a discussion with Jim Whiten,
Yes,
as did I, about this Tiverton Water District
Mhm.
thing. I tried to find on their website, various websites, and I couldn't find any information, so I don't have enough information to really assess that. But I do think part of, this is sort of an aside, we might be able to get resource support for this project through the Public Health Excellence Grant, because data upgrades is
Mm.
part of what is an allowable or a priority activity.
mhm,
So, so I think there's multiple approaches. I'm not sure we're ready for a grant process, but, because this is a grant we have in-house already. So there might be, so that could be part of the discussion about the strategy of moving forward. So, that could tie into that discussion, and maybe we can get some more information from Jim about that. The way they do it in Tiverton, because I couldn't find anything. So, let me go to board updates, and then we'll come back and try and figure out if there's, in case there's something else that we want to be talking about for scheduling working meetings. I'm gonna turn first to Donna, because I
well,
know
the
she's,
updates, obviously, you're working on the database.
Yeah.
And,
and a column you've just
oh
submitted.
yeah, I just submitted the shorelines,
Yeah,
health notes for
Right.
December.
and I think maybe something like this could be, a
Yeah,
version
shorelines,
of this, could be January, hey, if you've got a cesspool, if you've got something that's over
Yeah.
50 years old, it's probably a cesspool, and you should start paying attention to this kind of thing.
right, right, yeah,
In general, I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
yeah.
So,
And just to say, maybe we're gonna start reaching out to people.
Yeah,
just
and we'll
a
be
heads up,
reaching out
what-
and,
You know,
if
Yeah.
if you don't know what your
yeah. mhm.
system is,
Get an inspection.
get an
Yeah.
inspection,
Yeah.
start
But
thinking.
I think that clarification from DEP is really important, because I think
Yes.
that's gonna substantially expand the universe.
Right,
If
well,
we choose to do that, I mean, we have some control over it.
right.
And maybe, just saying regardless of what the definition is, again, that may become to a prioritization thing for us.
I think that's gotta be part of the discussion, absolutely. So, okay, so let me, are you all set otherwise? Okay,
Oh, yeah.
thank you.
I mean,
All right.
Christmas is coming, so I'm all set.
I know, everybody. Any other updates, Phil? Anything
I would
else?
say the only thing is that because of Matt's schedule, he asked if I would participate in a meeting that is happening this Friday with all the Westport Harbor publicly owned private
Oh,
water
okay.
suppliers,
Uh-huh.
and the consultant that was hired to go over potential locations for a, integrated or combined well system. I think they're at just the first step of it, and so they have identified, some areas and kind of ranked them, and I guess we're gonna kind of go over and see what, Chris Capone is gonna be there from the Conservation Commission, and I'll be there just more informationally, although I think there may be an overlap with Concom, so that'll be helpful for me.
Great.
Because I think one of the wells is on conservation land, and, anyway, so we're
Okay.
on the loop on that, I guess.
Well, thanks for taking that on. Okay, I think I've touched on most stuff. I just, again, will circle back. The Public Health Excellence grant is the, $300,000 a year for the 6 communities that are part of the collaborative. We are having our first meeting on Wednesday with a representative from each of the communities to kind of kick that off and hopefully start hiring the staff that we need to support that. But there will be some opportunity to provide support to each community, and so that's what I was thinking about, sort of maybe helping with the cesspool thing, because the data piece of it would be, more hands on deck would be helpful. So that's that. Anything else? If not, let's schedule meetings. So the cesspool stuff, that being the primary topic, we're of course moving into the holiday season. How are what would people be thinking? Before or after Christmas? After.
Well, if it was gonna be before, it would probably have to be next week, so.
Yeah.
'Cause,
Right. Well, that's,
Right.
yep.
I'm shaking my head no.
No, okay.
Not with what's on my agenda.
Okay, absolutely. The week between Christmas and New Year's? Is
I
that,
think I'll be
Matt's
around.
shaking his head.
Just to say, the end of this calendar year is very busy with a lot of different things on my schedule for different meetings and all, with the
Okay.
PHE stuff and all of that. If you just want my suggestion, the 3rd, 4th, or 5th of January would work best. It'll
okay,
give us something to talk about at the 9th meeting. We can bring what we discussed at the working meeting into the 9th if you wanted to.
okay. I'm game for that.
The 4th works for me.
The 4th.
It's a Wednesday.
I can work around that. I've got, how about in the afternoon, Wednesday the 4th? Does that work, Phil?
That's okay with me?
Okay, how about 1 o'clock?
Yep.
Yeah.
Board of Health cesspools.
And if you want, because Roberta Carvalho from the Alliance has offered to attend one of our discussion meetings, so
Okay,
if we're at a point that it would be helpful to have somebody from the Alliance here, it may be premature, so, but just to let you know.
yeah, let's talk our internal strategy
Okay,
first, but I
okay.
think the next time.
Okay.
That would be great. Thank you for that. I appreciate their support. Okay, and then shall we try to preliminarily set a meeting for the Title V watershed permit discussion?
Yeah, so,
Should it be after the info sessions, the 17th and 18th?
that would probably make sense, I guess. Just, where is it? Okay, so we're looking, so what did I say?
Could we-
Those are the 17th, the 17th and 18th. I don't know if it's good to do both, but.
How about like the 19th, Thursday the 19th? Is that or Friday the 20th?
Friday the 20th would work better, but I can switch
How about-
something that week.
That'd be,
Okay,
yeah,
let me
I
just
don't know
check.
if I would, yeah,
Is that,
that would probably be good, because I think I'm starting to have meetings on Thursday
Friday,
either CPC or the Water Committee or
okay,
something else, so Fridays, assuming if it's in the afternoon, that would be fine.
May
okay,
have to do that one without me, I'm not gonna be here on that day,
okay,
which would be fine, I could just listen to the tape.
yeah, okay. So afternoon, you said better Friday afternoon?
Yeah, yeah,
So how about 1 o'clock Friday?
okay.
Okay.
So that's on the 20th,
The 20th, yeah, EOH,
1 PM?
Title 5, yep.
And the other one is on the 9th, is that what you're saying?
Yes. Did I say that?
No,
No,
9th is our
I'm
next
sorry.
Board of Health meeting, 4th,
Yeah, the 4th.
The 4th,
at 1
okay.
o'clock.
At 9 o'clock?
1
No,
o'clock.
1
At 1
o'clock.
o'clock, okay,
So the 4th at 1 o'clock and the 20th at 1 o'clock.
okay.
And what's the topic gonna be for the 20th?
The 20th is the comment letter, Title 5 watershed permit
Yeah,
stuff, and,
which is a DEP estuary regulations.
Yeah.
Okay.
because we may have other information from some of our other work that we're working on that will relate to that as well, so. Okay, I believe we're good.
Yeah,
A motion.
So I move that we adjourn this meeting at 5:42 PM.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much, everyone. Happy holidays.